Well, okay, I'm going to start. This is Javier. How are you? Good afternoon to everyone. Okay, well, I was just listening to Saskia and to Javier, and it seems that Erica still is kind of only for central banks. Information is provided to central banks. So obviously, since I'm represented and I'm a financial analyst and investor on the buy side, it's no limit. It's limited for us at this point. So I don't think that we can really do that much in that sense. But one key point I have to say is that the very key eventually is how the information it will be made available for investors and financial analysts. How it's presented, it has to be users friendly in terms of how we use the information, because that's one of the main issues that we have right now with other languages, other program languages, other languages, other programs actually, in terms of how we get information. That will be my general comment on that sense.
May I make some comment?
Yes, please.
Based upon the experience in Japan. Okay. For the public disclosure or financial data gathering, one of the most important point is how to keep the data comparability and then data transparency. Okay. Let me share the experience in the case of Japan. In Japan, we have EDInet, Electronic Disclosure for Investors Network. That is the electronic financial report disclosure system operated by Japanese Financial Service Agency, JFSA. It covers the most of the Japanese listed companies, over 4,000 companies. And originally, the system started operation since the year 2004, initially based upon HTML. And then since the year 2008, XBRL plus HTML service started. And from the year 2013, new system that provide inline XBRL and the PDF started the service. And our experience, how to maintain the data comparability was like this. There are two important points. One is the taxonomy design process, which was mainly managed by JFSA and also XBRL Japan members. Before starting the service, we spent almost 2 years for eliminating duplication or redundancy of as-is reporting elements. Originally, the number of reporting elements in as-is model was over 50,000, After 2 years, very intensive work, we eliminated more than 90% of unnecessary elements. And finally, we could get 4,600 final element, 4,600 final element. That is sophisticated and slim, and that has the high data comparability and the transparency. But even though we could establish the clean and lean taxonomy at the first stage, when the time passes, okay, the companies are easy to extend the definitions. That's why JFSA, Japanese Financial Service Agencies, are always watching the quality of taxonomy and try to maintain the comparability and the slimness of the taxonomy. There is another important factor to support this comparability in Japan. That is the support from financial reporting, financial printing companies. Okay, they are official companies. And in the Japanese reporting market, there were two major printing companies. they are important member of XBRL Japan. And those two companies are mainly supporting the Japanese companies for XBRL submission. And in the process of the of making XBRL instance, if the companies wants to extend the taxonomy unnecessarily, those two companies are trying to control and try to maintain the comparability of the taxonomy. Okay, so those continuous effort is keeping the comparability of Japanese EDI net, public disclosure financial data. So that is the experience in Japan. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Ashok to you, Yoshiaki. Is do Japanese regulator allows custom tax, and how Japanese regulators deal with custom tax?
Sorry,
custom tax extensions.
Yeah, with yes, it depends on the cases. Okay, so when there is a request, okay, such a kind of request, JFSA carefully check the necessity and make a decision.
Okay, clear. Perfectly clear.
Yeah.
More questions for Yoshiaki? So I have a question for Javier de Frutos, because Javier is a financial analyst, and the question is how you work with SEF reports when with financial information in general. When you have to analyze a company, are you using Excel? Are you using artificial intelligence? Or what are you, paper and pencil, or what are your tools?
You mean the tools, analytic tools for financial analysts?
Yeah.
In Japan?
No, also in Japan, but also for Javier de Frutos in the international arena.
Okay, well,
it's for all of you, the question.
No, I think, I mean, okay, first of all, it depends very much on the company, because these days things have evolved significantly, and you have, for instance, the large investment banks and that were on the sell side, and you have some major investors that they can have their own software. So what they do is they convert the financial information and financial reporting into their own softwares, and then the analysts, the only thing they do is, the only thing they do, they just work on that basis. But still in continental Europe, and I talk a lot to my colleagues in continental Europe, many people, many analysts, they are using still Excel for that. You know, Excel now has actually a tool, I think Microsoft 365, sorry, that you can import XBRL into the spreadsheet. I mean, it's not that users friendly as it should be, but you can do that. So the main way how we use it, and I have to talk personally and for my colleagues right now that I know, we have been using Excel. That's the main tool that we use. Now, one of the big things that we have in that sense is, you know, we talk a lot about consistency, comparability, and coherence with companies. Well, the reality is not there yet. As people being involved with IFRS, and as you know, I'm very involved with IFRS, and other people in this panel are very involved with IFRS. This is the main challenge that really, in the definition of standards, IFRS has. So standards are very key how they are presented. I can tell you as an analyst, and I'm stopping there, I'm looking every day to annual reports. Okay, annual reports these days, they are humongous. I mean, they are huge. But you only look into the financial side, on the financial report, you are going to find companies, even within the same sector, and I don't want to be too precise right now, but I can be precise, companies within the same sector reporting differently. That has nothing to do with the aggregators, with the data, that information has to do how companies are reporting and how the standards they are right now produced. I think as an example, and that's I finish here. Right now, the primary financial statements that have been in the way is under review, as you know. I think they're working very closely with the taxonomy team in IFRS. I think if I'm correct, And hopefully, IFRS, the standards, whenever they are enacted, will be presented in a way in which will be more, I would say, more users friendly, and will be really reflecting the taxonomy of the new standard. So I think this is very key, Ignacio. And the other things done, we can spend a lot of time with the technology, spend a lot of time going around with what the tools, but the main thing here is that the companies are presenting information in a consistent and comparable basis. As is not easy, that I can tell you. That's what I think about, on to your point.
And Maria, what is your environment, maybe XBRL International, maybe your company, maybe your who knows, to fix this situation?
No, I think this, so we are now in a transformational moment, to be honest. Every time I see ESEF and initiatives like this, I see, an evolution of the financial information in a good manner, data tag, machine readable, analyzable, and freely accessible. Christmas for us in many ways, no? I think there are still, looking at this year, that has been like a pilot period for many countries disclosing this, and we have now access to reports, ESEF reports. I think one of the clear and most obvious challenge that also Wada-san has been spoken for the Japanese case is the data quality. Looking in detail, and I encourage you actually to go to the XBRL International website, where Rebathip has been putting some posts every week about different problematics. We found incorrect days, redundant labels, calculations, inconsistencies, incorrect signs are happening. Kind of these problems are happening, which is normal. This is the first year, and things are going to continue, improving. But there is a second challenge I think is very important to rise up, which is the role of auditors and auditing requirements for ESEF. I think we cannot forget probably that the audit obligation of ESEF comes not only from the accounting perspective, it also the technical aspects of XBRL under ESEF technical requirements. And we need to be honest, the majority of the auditors do not have any technical knowledge about XBRL. And I think the majority of the software applications are still under development and improving, which doesn't make it really the life easy on this matter. And I think this issue doesn't only apply to auditors. I think the board members, the boards of directors are also in this responsibility to revision. And if we think about, not all the companies have CTO's type profile as part of the board. So I think a message here is the audit is, to be honest, is also crucial to ensure the data quality, that's for sure. And I think also the auditing requirements will need to evolve, as well as the audit practices, tools, and also we need here more market education. There is a third point that I think is also very important to rise up, which is the accessibility. Today, in order to access to the ESEF reports, you need to go to each country OIM portal, find and download the ESEF reports. In some of these cases, you need to be local to really find that out and download, because the language barrier, okay, it's not as easy as and straightforward. So something more centralized at EU level, I think probably here is necessary to access to ESEF reports. I think probably Paul Warren in his presentation can make like some insight on this matter, because he has been in a position to gathering several reports from different OEMs. So he will say, I think he suffered a little bit the problem.
Can I make a comment, Ignacio, on that? Because I think Maria is completely right. But I think I have to say the XBRL from the beginning was more developed for companies and regulators. I think users and I think auditors, and you're completely right, Maria, they are coming late into the game. And I think, you know, I'm a little critical on that, to tell you the truth, because I've been for more than, what, maybe, you know, XBRL started in 2003, 2004. I think I've been involved with these things with more than 10 years. and always been lagging behind. The focus has been always companies and regulators. It has not been, I mean, what you're telling about auditors is completely right, but why auditors now, they haven't been trained their teams? They have been training teams in many other things because they are being left behind. So I think you are completely right. The best thing to do will be to bring them on board and work with them, because at the end of the day, as an analyst, as an investor, I want to have assurance of what they're doing. The only way I can have assurance is obviously they know what they're doing. And you're completely right. They need to be involved and much more involved. And I think I have to say, in that sense, XBRL, and I know them for many years, I said, has been always more focused on developing with companies and with regulators.
Yes, this is a typical question. In this particular case, I have a doubt. Is ESEF fulfilling the needs of the business users? Because in the case of Japan, Yoshiaki commented that was a work of 2 years in order to depurate the applicable taggings. But the approach in Europe is accept thousands and thousands of IFRS tags plus open free lunch in extensibility. Until which point that approach fits the needs of the business users? Or maybe this is a question for the next year.
Well, I can say something. First, Javier, I agree with you. Totally support your comments. The second, the question that you have said, Nacho, I think we will see over the time. I think something is better than nothing. I think we need to also understand where we come from and where we are going. We come from having, firstly, this kind of extensibilities in the annual reports in PDF. So if you want to access, it's very messy. Each company is doing their own thing in PDF, very wonderful formats, very wonderful pictures, but in order to analyze is incredibly difficult. Now with ESEF, there is an action of transparency that is better. At least we have a structured digital data and data that comes from the company's perspective to what they need to disclose without the barriers of not disclosing more, as we had before, right? Because the regulator here in Europe, they give the checklist, you cover, and that's all. But maybe that wasn't useful for their investors, so they need to include more. I think over the time we will see, clear impacts on this, but from my perspective, it's better than before because something is better than nothing, honestly.
May I comment? Okay. I fully understand, okay, how difficult to harmonize all the existing companies in Euro area. And but how about thinking like this, okay, to maintain the minimum transparency or minimum comparability within the same industry, okay? Because it is very difficult to keep the data comparability across all the industries, okay? Even in the case of Japan, we are keeping the minimum comparability within the same industry. From the viewpoint of the investors, when the investors are comparing the target of the companies, normally they compare the performance of the one company to the average performance in the same industry, or compare the another target industry comparative. So minimum comparability or data transparency within the same industry, I think that is the minimum requirement.
Yeah, but go ahead, Ignacio.
No, you, Javier, please.
No, Wada-san, you are completely right, but to me, the problem really originates on the standards there, because there are standards right now that, for instance, you take the income statement, something income statements, it has been only mandatory standard to have, I think it's 5 items. The rest, companies have a lot of leeway to present the accounts in their own way. I think with the new project underway right now with the primary financial statements, all these things hopefully will be significantly reduced. So I think the standards in a way, and they are very aware, I'm not criticizing IFRS because they are very aware and it's extremely difficult to do those kind of things. But the standards in a way has to be more consistent for companies in that way, because otherwise there is too much leeway for companies to present information as they want, and always they're going to do it because you know, companies, they're going to find little loopholes to present information in their own ways. So I'm never expecting, you know, see things 100% comparable. I mean, that was my job as an investor and as a financial analyst, to do the analysis and the judgment. At the end of the day, you know, we cannot eliminate the judgment side of the investor and the analyst, obviously, because otherwise, you know, we leave everything to computers. But I think the beginning, I mean, what is stemming that issue, it has to be addressed, and it's been addressed, I have to say that.
I have a question for Saskia and Javier. Is related the usability of ERICA for financial analysts, for investors, or for business users that have in one hand the ESEF reports, but Yoshiaki or Wada was commenting the comparability with the sector, the comparability with other similar companies. My question is if ERICA may help in this topic of comparability. What is your opinion about? Thank you.
Yes, Ignacio, I think so, because as already mentioned, we developed our own standard formats. So all reports from groups are transformed into this standard formats, as a result of which all the data are totally comparable, because the same lines are used for all the groups. So it means obviously that as already mentioned before, the work of the analyst is very important, because the analyst has to interpret the data in a correct way in order to decide in which line item an amount needs to be classified. And that is why also the mapping process, as explained by Javier, is so important, because we really need to make sure that a certain tag should be assigned to a particular element in order to maintain this comparability that we always have had during these many years of manual data entry. So as regards ERICA, we do not have this problem of comparability. It is one of our key benefits, that the data is totally comparable among all the groups. Regarding your remark about the use for analysts or business users, I would like to point out once more that the aggregate data is publicly available on the website that is mentioned in the slides. So the aggregate information, such as totals or also ratios, are all available. The file case, it's easily usable because it's in Excel format, you can download. And so people can compare the performance of a particular company with means or averages or whatever that is available in the aggregate data. So also ratios are available. You can calculate the ratios for a particular group and compare with sector statistics or country statistics or whatever. So it could be very useful for business users as well.
Yes, I would like to just to add that, for instance, well, for internal purposes, it is already being used as benchmark for other purposes regarding analysis. Okay, just as an example, we could have we could talk about benchmark, and it is a source and an input for that to take decisions. Let's say. That's all.
Thank you very much. After that explanation, for me, my last question is about how are in general educated the business users in the use of IFRS, XBRL, and this kind of arcane stuffs. What are your feeling are your recommendations in this area? Yoshiaki, what has been your experience in Japan?
Okay. Yes. In the process of implementing XBRL, we had so many seminars and educational opportunities for investors, data consumers, and also industry side. And JFSA is still keeping these kind of, say, seminar or something periodically for investors. So continuous education opportunity is, I think, essential way. Okay. And also, there are two types of user merit to use, say, comparative and transparent data provided by XBRL. Initial merit is occurring in the first user of XBRL data, such like the data provider or the major investors. They have the ability to directly consume the data by their own system. And then the second user is the subscriber to these, say, data providers. Okay, so private investors or small size investors or something. But because of the improved data quality and something, most any levels of investors or data users can enjoy the benefit of clear and precise and comparative data. So, but people are difficult to understand these, say, waterfall type merit, okay, coming from the upstream to the downstream. So in the educational process, we have to tell the importance of the clear data or comparative taxonomies, and also the merit of the sophisticated data, something. So repeatedly. That is the experience in Japan.
Thank you very much. Any other comments about this topic?
Yes, I would like to also extend the lines of Wada-san regarding, I think we are still, at least in ESEF, in early stages on that regard. I think we need to still more market education, not only from the preparer's point of view, because it has been, we need to reconsider that it's not only a technical evolution with anchoring and all these stuff, but also from the accounting perspective. It's new, so it needs time. I think an education in that side to continue doing better reporting. At the prepare side, of course, at the consumer side, of course, as well, we need to encourage and promote more education on how to use, how to digest, how to interpret, align, you know, with the lines of preparation. So I think, you know, we are still in early stages, probably. Education is needed, and things I think will continue improving over the time.
Thank you very much. Javier, maybe?
No, yeah, I completely agree with Maria and Wada-san, what they're saying. I mean, the education is very key, but you have to see that it's a transition, and really, this is the beginning, tell you the truth, because, you know, XBRL has been in the market for what, 8 years, 9 years, more or less. Availability for users and investors has been, it's not that widely used right now. So, you know, you look at investors and analysts that they started to work as junior analysts 10 years ago, they're not familiar with that. They have to relearn it. They have to learn it, you know, and in the same way that I grew up with Excel, and many analysts that grew up with Excel, and it's part of their tool, is their tool, XBRL is not. So you're not going to go to analysts that are already, you know, been 10, 15 years in the job, and you have to completely retrain them to use that. So I think the sooner that if you are going to be based on XBRL or all the different aggregators that really investors want to use in the market, they have to do that in a very user-friendly and easy, understandable way. Otherwise, analysts looking into 25, 30 companies, we are not going to spend time, believe me, in looking at what is behind that. We are going to go into the financial reports, into the companies, and we got much faster, even if it's more difficult sometimes, it takes more time, in understand exactly what is the substance of the companies. So I think it has to be a matching that right now still is not there. And I think, and I have to say once again, we have to work more together. And I think standards are key. And thankfully, they're working in that direction at IFRS right now. But SBRL, I think, has to work more focusedly on that also. Thus, education is a process, definitely, and that is there's a need for that.
Thank you very much. Well, we are now completing this phase. I don't know if Saskia and Javier, as the main speakers in this, and the usual suspects in this area, like to close the point.
Maybe just a small remark on the last point about the quality and education in improving the quality. I think we should, as users, we should be patient, and we should not expect that ESEF will solve all our problems right away, because these quality issues have always been part of the company's reports during all these years that they have been publishing their information in PDF files. There have always been problems with, for example, additions that didn't sum up, or amounts in the notes that couldn't be reconciled with amounts in the main statements, or tables in which the amounts of previous years were not updated. And I'm sure ESEF will improve many of these things, but I'm not convinced that everything will be perfect, not at least not in the near future. Maybe after years of experience, we will be able to attain nearly perfect information, but I'm not convinced that it will be perfect ever. So